Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Gilson, and I am a new adjunct instructor here at UAGC, and I will be your host this afternoon for this session that is called You've Got Mail, Messages and Live Connections based on open access sources and enriched with encouragement, empowerment, and humor, the missing link to student retention and success. By joining us today, you acknowledge that this session is being recorded and will be shared with TLC-related materials. Microphones will be muted for the presentation, but we encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat. Also, we have enabled live transcription. If you would like to use it, click on the Show Captions button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Now, I'm pleased to introduce to you our presenters, Sandra Rebeor, Michelle Rosser-Majors, Christine McMahon, and Stephanie Stubbs.
Thank you, Megan, and thank you all for being here with us today. My name is Dr. Christy McMahon, and to get started, I'd like to just cover our learning outcomes for our session today. And what we would like to look at is, first, we want to examine various open access resources and ideas to help encourage, empower, and humor your students. We also want to assess different perceptions among the senders, also the receivers of those messages. We want to evaluate the impact of these open access resources and the messages on the course completion, assignment completion, and course progression rates. And finally, we want to create action items for research so that all of you leave with some ideas and tools to utilize open access resources in higher education.
So hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Rosser-Majors, and so we're just going to talk a little bit about what actually are open access resources and the different types. So open access resources can be many things, but they're electronic resources that are available on the internet. They generally do not have licensing or copyright restrictions, and they can include articles, journals, books, videos, and so much more that can help you add some empowering things into your courses and into your messaging to your students. One of the quotes that we found was, open access is the needed modern update for the communication of research that fully utilizes the internet for what it was originally built to do, accelerate research. And so as we know, there's just so many more things out there that people can access and learn from when years ago there were not. Next slide, please. And so just a few types of the open access we'll go through. There are actually several different types of open access, but green and gold tend to be the most used. And so kind of the difference between them is, the gold open access is generally with your open access journals. It can be a hybrid journal that supports open access. Sometimes those are called hybrid open access, but also are considered gold open access by some journals. And these are generally paid for by the author, by some type of funding, to make sure that their article is available for others out there, free access. So the green open access tends to be when they've paid a fee so that they can house their own article, so they can share it with others, maybe from their own website or from some type of database that houses different articles and different things. So there's just different types that you have to look for and make sure that you're finding good, solid resources for your students.
Yes, thank you, Michelle. And there are some numerous benefits of using OARs, and I'm sure throughout this conference you have learned about many of them. Here are 5 that we felt would be great to highlight. OARs can be accessed without a subscription or a membership. They are often published quickly or without having to undergo a long review process or publishing process. And also OARs, that means that the research can be based, that new research is available quickly, and you can access the findings and work with those findings as part of your own research or in practice. There are, again, maybe less hurdles to jump through regarding restricted access or paid access. And so fellow researchers and the public can access and utilize the data to increase knowledge, improve economic outcomes, or create other opportunities. For authors, this could mean that it can lead to more citations. In the field of education, we can then readily apply the research in a timely manner to reach a wider audience and make a great impact on our students and our teaching. Steph?
You muted, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. Open access resources can be used to increase self-determination and self-efficacy, which are such crucial determinants of success, student success. When students feel motivated and capable, they're more likely to continue in their program toward degree completion. And we all are here for that same reason, to encourage our students to continue toward their goals. And this is just one additional tool that can support us as we support them. To be successful in the online classroom, teachers must learn to engage learners and build connections. This is a really different skill set than what we might be used to using in a traditional classroom setting. In the traditional on-ground face-to-face classroom, students get a sense of who their instructor is, or a feel for their personality, maybe before and after class, when they have those informal conversations. And those opportunities aren't as naturally present in the online setting. So as instructors, we have to intentionally integrate them in this environment. And providing and using open access resources can open opportunities for discussion and conversations that foster some of those more informal opportunities to get to know one another and to get to know the material. And social online presence is a must in the online classroom. It helps students feel like they're a part of the online learning community. Conversation is really a key piece of this. Keeping a dialogue between students, one with another, and also with their instructor. Using open access resources that prompt and pique their interest really helps to build this rapport between those in the classroom setting. Building that online learning community is crucial to success of our students in this setting. Online learners may feel disconnected physically, but we can ensure that they are mentally and emotionally engaged and feel like they are truly a part of this really unique and important thing that we're doing together. Online instructors often have to put in a little extra effort when crafting their emails to give them that warm personal vibe and help encourage the student to feel safe, comfortable, and welcome, encouraging them to communicate, to correspond. Using resources that are widely available may make this material more engaging and interesting, and increase the likelihood that students open and read those messages that we're sending. Effectively used OARs can help an online instructor promote self-determination, self-efficacy, and increase student retention.
All right. Let's start with the first question that we have for you. And again, we would love your input. Megan, I don't know if we can unmute the audience or if they can unmute themselves. If not, you can feel free to type it in the chat. Steph, do you want to get started?
I would love to. So when we're sending messages or engaging with students in the classroom, some strategies that can be used to promote engagement include encouragement, empowerment, and humor. We are curious what kinds of strategies you all have tried. And so we would like to open this up as a sort of like a waterfall kind of discussion where everybody just types something in the chat at the same time, and we'll compile those.
We've already got some great answers coming in. So Roy says, as a global director of customer care that managed an email support team, the communication skills and additional empathy and emotional expression required to make the customer feel they are being cared about and not just cared for is unique. Totally agree. Lynn says, I use Bitmojis, I love that, and quotes in the announcements to engage and empower students. I think that's great, Lynn. And there's, many open access images and different things too that can be used to support that as well. Shauna says, okay. Let's see. Michael says, I use a lot of memes, encouragement, and support. Awesome. Marissa says, I've started adding memes to my discussion replies to make them more friendly. Kelly says, trying to use memes to represent the week and have students share theirs. I love that. I'd never thought about asking them to use their own, how fun that would be, rather than it just being us, is having them do that. Heather says, I asked students about something they posted in their intro, something about their life outside of school that they shared. Great idea. Harla says, I have used Bitmojis, and quite a while back, I used Screencast-O-Matic to provide assignment feedback to students who could see my body language with my comments. I love Screencast-O-Matic. I think that is excellent. I think it's great to also, as part of that social presence piece, to create introduction videos using Screencast. If you're not comfortable, talking, Animoto is another one that you can add music to, where you don't have to necessarily talk. You can just add the words and stuff. I love that. Let's see. Okay. James says, commenting on commonalities I notice in their discussion posts or introductions. Love it. Heather says, I use emojis to portray my tone. I think that's important. I think we forget how difficult it is to read tone in some of our feedback that we give. Are memes accessible? Are Bitmojis? In many cases, they are. You just have to search out and make sure that it's free to use. Inside of those classrooms too, I think they've got some options as well. Elena, I create announcements that I call my Monday brain break, talking about things like books, movies, hobbies, etc., to tell students about things I'm interested in and ask them questions that ask them to share their own experiences. Love it. This is a great group. They have great suggestions. Kelly says, I have been asking students what they are celebrating and learn so much about students that way, even if it's just that they were the first in the peanut butter jar. That's great. Lynn says, Susan, they are if you add a description. Absolutely. Good advice, Lynn. Dana says, I own my mistakes and my responses to encourage students who may fear those mistakes. If I make an error in a citation or reference, I will reply to myself and show where the error is, because we all make them, and how to fix them. I think that is great to show them that we all have to check those things too. And then lastly, here we have, I do this as an academic advisor, and with my earlier time zone, I will say not enough coffee yet. My coffee needs a coffee and then some. And I think that relaxes students. That's great. I love it. Wonderful engagement on that question.
Michelle, can I break in real quick? My response to Susan was not flippant, and I just want to make sure that when you add an image in Canvas, or in any, like in a Word document or in PowerPoint or anything like that, there's a space to add a description. And so I make sure that every image I use is fully described. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear.
Thank you, Lynn, for doing that, because that's an important part of accessibility as well, that we need to remember when we do add any type of videos or anything images that we're explaining it as well, with transcripts and descriptions. Great. Excellent. Next question.
Very good information, Lynn. Thank you for that reminder. So when we are also adding this type of information into our classes, we have to think about, what is our intent or our expectations as the sender, and what do we want the receiver to have? So think about that for a minute. What are we trying to do specifically with that message? Is it to empower? Is it to inform? Simply to engage? Elena, you mentioned Monday brain breaks. I love those ideas. I do like a motivational Monday or a humorous Friday. Sometimes I like to end the week with a little cartoon that kind of gets the class kind of motivated for the weekend to finish up the week as well. So that's definitely something to think about as well when we are sending these types of messages.
Absolutely. So 1, 2, 3, go. What intentions do you have when you do the things in your class, or what expectations do you have when you send it to them? That's kind of a harder question, because I think it's a range of things. Motivation, love that. I think sometimes just giving those students an extra little real person connection really can help motivate them, and they feel more comfortable asking questions too. Building rapport and trust, excellent. I want students to see that I am an actual person behind the screen and not a robot. Absolutely. I think that's highly important in how we teach online. I hope to bridge connections with my students. Students will use assignments in the course as a source of catharsis, and I want to make sure that I want to make sure that I care. Good. Roy, making them feel that we are on this journey with them. Absolutely. I think that is a big part of culture of care, and letting them know they're not walking alone, I think is great. Building trust and ensuring approachability. I think approachability is a great aspect to consider when we do these things. Because sometimes just being fun and being real can really help them bring down their walls and feel more comfortable with us. Stephanie says, I think sometimes students' intentions are to show us that they are really trying. It is important that we recognize that. Absolutely. Personal connection, walking with them through the process. I know I would create badges a lot for my classes and just give students different badges and discussions if they did well. And I just kind of created them myself. But I think there's all kinds of options we can do to help them feel recognized and get that connection going with them. Great responses. All right.
Okay, let's move on to the last question that we have for this amazing audience. And hopefully we can further discuss some impacts later. But so this question is, are certain open access sources perceived as higher quality as compared to others? What are your thoughts around that?
Personally, as they start writing their ideas, and I actually think that we do have to be cautious about different sources, as we use things, and make sure that they're credible sources. There are, you can go to Google and read a lot about journals that are not reputable, trying to convince people to do it through their journals and different things like that, so they don't have a good review and different things like that. I think that's really important. And we have to remember too that any image sites and different things, there are some that are not safe to be at. And so we have to be very cautious, I think, of open access resources, which makes it very important to learn more about them. Harla says, I think so. I love OpenStax resource because they go through the great peer review. Absolutely. I haven't tried that one. I'll look into that. I'm gonna make a note. Thank you for that, Harla. I've heard that some people feel that open access sources are not as credible. It seems to be a stigma. I can see that too. I think just like the stigma of online learning, that I think is getting better all the time, or improving, because it is a challenge to learn online, as we all know. So I would agree with the stigma piece of it. And I think as more people, even AI starts to develop where it can do different things in education, I think that hopefully that stigma will improve. Great responses. Elena says, I think Elena says, I think there are perceptions about OA sources regarding the review process to ensure accuracy and avoid bias. I think you're right. And I think that some are better than others, Elena. And so that is good to always look into and not just grab the first thing you see. Absolutely. All right, that's it now.
Thank you. And thanks for all these great comments. Definitely provoking a lot of food for thought, I think. And also, while considering the horizon that we have with open access and other resources, that there are still a couple of things that we have to keep in mind, and ensuring that the ones we use, again, going back to the intent, have that intent that we aim for, that are credible, and that we use them, I guess, respectfully, giving still the authors credit for their work. And of course, setting an example for our students. I think that's really important, especially we have to think back of when we started out in our college journey. It was probably a little confusing too, and I know I think back to my own bachelor's degree journey, and we had just textbooks. There really weren't other journals or open access resources that we used a lot. I know there was Google, but it was just a textbook mainly. And so it made things, while restricted, and we only got the information from really one source, from the author, While a little restricted, it was also a little easier to navigate, and we didn't have that wealth of information. But I do appreciate variety and exposure to different resources, and I'm sure many of you too. But we also have to live by example and essentially teach students, about some of the important things to keep in mind when using open access resources.
Sandra, I just want to share a quick, if you don't mind, I want to share a quick story.
Yeah, sure. We have time.
Felicia had mentioned Wikipedia, and I will tell everybody a funny story. I quit allowing that ever, and don't do it myself, after a friend of mine went to Wikipedia, edited the Wikipedia site saying she was dating some guy, actor, something or another, and like literally it stayed on Wikipedia for like 3 days. So it's kind of scary because you never know who's in there editing some of those, but I do think it's gotten a lot better on some of the sites where people can't all edit it. So I do think it's gotten better, but
that's too funny. Thanks for sharing, Michelle. All right, and here are some final thoughts, and we again would love to get your input. What actions or tools can be used in higher education to promote encouragement and empowerment to increase student retention? Are there any that you have used that you really feel have worked, or are there any that you may have heard about, whether through this conference or other sources, that you really wish that you and want to try in the future?
I'm going to just share a little bit about one of the research teams I'm on, where we're using virtual reality and looking into using virtual reality with activities. And they're actually starting one of our courses, just recently started a live learning session that if students have virtual reality, they can go to this particular session. And they're seeing these students like so excited. And there's even students that are running out to buy, a virtual reality because they want to engage in that. And we know how hard it is sometimes to get students to go to live learning. But if you've ever done the virtual reality thing, until you do it, you don't get it. But once you do it, it was amazing, and it is amazing. And it's really neat because you almost start to believe that people are really them inside this room. So I think creatively, that's something I think all of us are going to see coming down the pipe. I mean, it's coming. Other schools are already using it some, but I think it's a great tool that we'll be using at some point to help engage as well, create better connections. Harla says, I think it is all about the personal connection instructors work to build with each student. As Dr. Pritz said in his presentation, we have to be radically human. Empathy, approachability, support. Absolutely. Totally agree.
Yes.
Someone shared, let me go up. It kind of went too fast on me here. Michael shared a site where he makes his own memes. Thank you for sharing that. Because that can be fun. It can actually be geared toward an assignment or be more specific for what you're wanting to encourage with a student or students. ResearchGate, I love ResearchGate as an access resource. I found some great micro lessons on TikTok from scholars in different fields who may not have been traditionally published in the sphere. It could be a good tool to leverage not only with students, but those outside the classroom as well. I would agree with that, except that I do know that University of Arizona has asked no TikTok to be on any of our stuff. So I think that's one thing we would have to be a little bit cautious about. Video recordings and short live learning sessions each week, discussing the week's readings, assignments, and discussions and expectations. Absolutely, Vanessa, that's great. These are all great, great suggestions.
Absolutely, yes. And do we have any final thoughts or takeaways based on today's presentation? Anything that comes to mind that you wish that you want to share with us?
Carla says, Perusal is an amazing software that can be embedded in a course that promotes engagement between students in a social media format. Oh, that's interesting. I'm going to write that down. Laura says she sings to her student. It is original, and it's a birthday song or celebration of good grades. That is neat. Good for you. I don't think they want to hear my singing, but I think that's wonderful. I think the key is just being very open-minded about how can you make students feel more connected to you and feel much more comfortable with you. Sometimes when a student's missing, something major's happened. So, just giving them a cheery note or whatever. I don't know if y'all have seen the commercial, with this little commercial where this little woman is walking and she said, sometimes people just need a piece of pie to make their life better, and has that little Southern draw. And I think that's kind of what we have to do here sometimes, is give our students a little piece of pie, and it looks different, and it's a meme, or it's a resource that helps them with stress, or different things. But everybody needs a piece of pie now and then.
Awesome. Well, we are at the end with 5 minutes to spare. Wow, something I didn't think was possible with such a tight timeline for our presentation, but that's amazing. And your engagement was great. Thank you all for attending. If, of course, you have any final thoughts or would like to continue the conversation, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. It's first name, period, last name at uagc.edu. So, yeah, we'd love to stay connected. And if you come across anything else that you feel you want to share with us regarding open access, student encouragement, empowerment, we would certainly appreciate it, or any general thoughts relating to the topic. So thank you again for attending, and we will see you soon.
Thank you. Thank you to our presenters, Sandra, Michelle, Christine, and Stephanie. And thank you, audience members, for your participation in today's session. If you would please use the survey linked in the chat to nominate TLC presentations for conference awards and share your feedback on your conference experience. We hope you had a great day today, and we hope you enjoy day 3 tomorrow.